Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here for this webinar. We're excited about this one. We have with us Mike Espiritu, President and CEO of Roswell Chavez Economic Development Corporation, and Justin Summer from Economic Development or Economic Development Director for Preble County Economic Development Partnership, along with Bethany Quinn, our President at Golden Shovel Agency. We're going to talk a little bit today about marketing strategies that drive rural growth. So I will let you take it over, Bethany.
Thank you, Nathan. And before we get going, I want to make sure that echo is gone so we don't drive everyone nuts on this webinar today.
We
I
got a
see a
thumbs up.
thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I am so excited to be joined here today by Mike and Justin. We actually were on a panel together for a webinar for INRITA, and they shared so much exciting and really valuable information from their own experiences in economic development that I wanted to make sure they were able to share all of that information with you, regardless of where you happen to be in the country, since many people did not attend that INRITA webinar. Now, Mike and Justin are from very different parts of the country. Mike is from New Mexico, Justin's from Ohio. So they deal with similar challenges, but also very different ones. So they bring an incredibly diverse perspective to our conversation today. And for those of you who are not familiar with Golden Shovel, we are a full service economic development strategy and communications firm. Economic development is all that we do. We've completed over 400 projects and we operate in over 43 states. So we are always excited to share best practices and insights from what we've learned and what our clients are doing with the broader community. So we want to kind of start today by just addressing the elephant in the room, right? Rural America, if you live outside of a known metropolitan area or an adjacent suburb, there are going to be challenges that are unique to you, some which are real and some which are perceived. So a lot of what we're seeing is just that commonality of site selectors, business leaders, and even talent often views rural America as not having enough rooftops, right? The labor pool is too small. There's not good enough transportation infrastructure. They don't have amenities. And much of this is not fully real, right? It's a negative or inaccurate perception. I spoke at the SEDC conference in Dallas a couple weeks ago, and my Uber driver and I got into a conversation. Of course we did, talking about her workforce training and plans and how she was having a hard time finding a job in Dallas. And I said, "Well, rural America is looking for you, looking for your skill set. You should look outside of the metro." And she's like, "Well, but I wouldn't have a grocery store." Okay, that's not true, right? Like there are grocery stores even in very small towns. So it just proves the point that all of us have to work really hard to tell the truth and to dispel some of these negative and inaccurate perceptions. And one of the ways that we do that is through dynamic storytelling. At Golden Shovel, we recommend telling your story consistently on multiple platforms and really narrowing it down because you're not going to be able to really describe the entirety of your community, right? You have to have those couple things you really want to be known for and focus on that. So, consistent messaging, storytelling through your website, on social media, video, and social is all really important to convey those messages. And when you're doing that, we recommend being super specific. For example, if you say we have a skilled workforce, that doesn't tell anyone anything, really, right? That could sound like anyone, any community, anywhere. Instead, it's better to say we have a labor shed of 50,000 workers, right? That's also one of the strategies. We need to change from what's your community to your entire labor shed within 45 minutes, right? Talking about we have great incentives. Well, no, we have manufacturing equipment grants that help you buy new equipment faster. Let's be specific so people actually understand what you have to offer instead of it sounding like a generality that applies to anyone and no one will actually remember about you. So that does take more effort. It takes a lot of thinking, but it's worthwhile to get specific. And we're going to go back and forth today between our two speakers to talk about how they're doing this. So let's start with you, Justin. Let's talk about how you focused on consistent messaging starting even in your own community.
So that first bullet point that you have there, Bethany, on changing the narrative starts with your own residents is so important to the messaging that we've delivered over the last year and a half to 2 years. And you need that regular consistency, and those advocates that are outside the economic development organization to carry that story forward. So just last week, for Economic Development Week, we got a proclamation from our county commissioners, and I shared with the statistics on all the good things that are happening in Preble County. And the Facebook comment on that post was, as far as I can tell, there's only been one high-paying job created in Preble County, and that's the economic development directors.
Oh no.
So I did respond to that, but we need our advocates, our community members to really speak on behalf of the economic development organization when it's under attack. And so, what Golden Shovel did with us before we started that workforce attraction campaign was to survey our community. What are the things that they see are good about Preble County that we should be sharing with the rest of the world? So having that base as really the cornerstone of the messaging helps us in promoting ourselves not only to the external market, those folks that we want to come and live or do business here, but also to our internal market to remind them about, why we need a new grocery store. Where are the businesses that are creating jobs and high paying jobs? So that component was so vital, not only to the initial messaging, but also what we continue to do on a regular basis.
Yeah, one of the things I know that you had typed in here as a note, which I love, right, is the fact that development will happen for you or to you. Even that I thought was an interesting point you've been making.
It's a reminder to, especially in a rural community where historically we're not pro-growth. That hasn't been the messaging that has been out there, right? But that doesn't mean development's not going to happen. It doesn't mean development didn't happen before the Economic Development Organization existed, right? So all of these, there's a reason why things are the way that they are. And if we don't engage and involve ourselves in that, then it's really outside of our control, right? And so that's the reminder that I use with our local stakeholders is whether we're here or not, development is going to happen. So don't you want to have a say in what that looks like, where it goes, how it benefits our community, what resources it's using that could be used elsewhere. So all of that goes into the messaging. And yeah, it's development's happening. It's either
Right.
happening to you or for you.
Mike, this isn't your slide, but I heard a comment from you earlier even. You're like, these are the kind of jobs that we want, right? That's that same mentality, knowing what you want.
Well, I think that really begins with starting to understand your community. What makes sense to you. I mean, rural towns probably won't attract a large entity like advanced manufacturing car, you know, manufacturer. But what works for your community? I think that's what's important. You have to know yourself. You can't
Right.
tell others about anything other than what you know. Um, and I think that's what's really important. And from where I sit is that I've found that a lot of people don't really understand your town. They may not even know that you even exist, right? I mean, what's different for us though is we're in Roswell. Everyone's heard of Roswell, New Mexico. But there's places I've been where they say, "Well, where's that?" And you tell them what state you're in. They go, "Well, is that part of the United States?" I know it sounds silly. I'm talking about New Mexico.
Sure.
So I think you just have to tell your own story, and
Mhm.
you have to explain and coach people what you're all about as a community, and why you can how you can fit into what their needs are to help solve their problems, so they can help solve your problems. We have a lot of things, as in the slide depicts. We I think largest piece I have found is that you have to know those true strengths, but you also
Hmm.
have to know those weaknesses, right? Because you can't speak to having a lot of something when you really don't. And that goes back to what Justin said, and that's you have to be truthful. You can't make things up. You've got to tell people the way it really is. Um, but I've learned that people when companies that are looking to expand in another area, they're looking at really the basic things because everyone that has ever moved ever, they have the same needs wherever they go to, and that is if they have a family, especially, they have to find employment, they have to find a place to live, they have to find a place for the kids to go to school, and so on. And everyone has those basic needs. And then how can you as a community fulfill those and talk to those? I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And my as my Uber driver demonstrated, I guess you can't take for granted that people realize you have those things, that you can meet their basic needs. It might
To,
seem silly, but you have to talk about it. Yeah, Justin?
to that point, Bethany, I'm glad you used that example because on my slide it talked about a grocery store. That was a reality for us. We didn't have a grocery store where people in the county wanted to go shop. So that was a critical need for us. So a year and a half ago, we landed a Kroger that tripled its footprint in our community. So now that it's been opened, we see license plates from other counties
Nice.
that are coming into Preble to shop now, which was unheard of a year and a half ago. So something as simple as a grocery store is an economic driver for us in a rural community.
Yeah, and definitely worth discussing and worth celebrating. I know, like you talk about the grocery store, people are coming in for that. Mike, you have a level 3 trauma center. I'm sure that people from neighboring communities are coming in for that too. And those are assumptions people might not make, that you have the best grocery store in the region now, or you have this, really intensive care available in your community. And we need to tell those stories. And
Well,
obviously, your
I
web.
think
Oh, go ahead.
Bethany, I think the key thing is you really have to control your own narrative. you know,
Hmm.
and when you allow others to do that and speak for your community, I think that's where sometimes misunderstandings and misinformation come about. And as economic developers, I think we do a lot of that, don't we, Justin? Is we have to tell the story oftentimes to nauseum because people don't know. And I think it's really important that we create that because as I always say, if when people don't know something, they make stuff up. And then that gets to wherever level it gets to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we recommend, obviously, at Golden Shovel best practices. You need to start with your economic development website because you have to have a platform for people to land so they don't make up that information. A lot of economic development organizations still make the mistake of being buried in a city or county site. And if people are landing there for information, they know how to get a license for their pet or apply for a permit, but they're definitely not getting the full story, right? And so we recommend having your website as your basics, and you need to create your value proposition, what you have to offer to the businesses, to the talent, to the investment that you're trying to recruit. You need to use dynamic maps, especially if you're not a known city. The fact that people are asking you, Mike, if you're in the United States demonstrates how what seems like a no-brainer to us is not for other people. Just in the fact that people probably don't know that you have proximity to major cities demonstrates why we need to do that. You need to feature your available sites because if you don't have a ready site, businesses are not going to be able to come and set up shop. They're going to go somewhere else. You need to tell your workforce story. You need to generate leads using forms to capture information. You need to use data tools like community profile tools to educate people, integrate AI, use video, and create compelling visuals that help you to celebrate success. So we're going to go into all of these different things because you both are doing much of this on the following slides. So right here, both this is an example from both of you, focusing on the unexpected and what you want people to remember. So right here, because Roswell, I'll start with you, Mike, here on the left, because you tend to be known for aliens, people don't realize, oh, we had a lot of industry here. So I know that's why that was really important for you.
Yes, and that's I think when we have when I have conversations with others and I tell them from Roswell, they always I won't say giggle, kind of depends who they are, but they it's a little bit of of a smile and say, oh, so is it really true? And then you once you get past that piece, that's really uh, part of who your community is. You can talk about who we really are.
Right.
And who are we really? Well, we are about aviation. We have one of the largest airfields in the country right here in Roswell. People don't know that.
Hmm.
The shuttle can land here. Anything, including aliens, can land here because we have the fifth largest runway in the United States. But
Sure.
people often don't understand that we're also a big ag community. We are founded on agriculture. We have farming, we have dairies, we have the world's largest mozzarella cheese plant right here in Roswell, New Mexico. Who knew? And then, of course, we have a lot of manufacturing. We even have an ammunition manufacturer right here in our community. So I think it's a matter of you want to tell those stories and tell those great highlights, and that's what helps you become a more of a I didn't know that. I should research that a little more. Maybe I should take a look at the website and maybe even pay a visit.
Yeah, and with you, Justin, your a screenshot of yours is on the right-hand side, and in the world that we live in today, where we surveyed economic developers from throughout the country. And one of the biggest needs in 2026 was how do we make sure people understand the work we're doing benefits them? Because there's been a lot of pushback and negative press, and I think you're addressing that clearly immediately. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so the phrase that you see on that slide is the basis on what I do everyday activity off of, right? So the messaging here serves two purposes for us. One is for those local stakeholders who, again, may not necessarily be pro-development. They may not believe what I say is going to be true. They hear the stories of the development projects that go bad or never happen, or the incentives are greater than what the ROI is. So they read those stories and they hear those, and that becomes their truth, right? So this messaging is for the local stakeholders to say, yeah, again, development's going to happen, and here's our methodology on why we're doing it. Here's the reasoning for the investment or the attraction of that new business in, because it is going to improve your quality of life. It's going to improve our school systems, et cetera. So that tagline really carries a lot of weight for our local stakeholders. And then secondarily, to Mike's earlier point, when you're talking about site selection, you are who you are, right? So I'm small towns. I'm Hallmark downtowns. We are not a metropolitan area, and so I'm not portraying that to any site selector. This is who we are. We are about people. Our communities matter to us, so your development has to fit in with that. But by doing that, by being transparent about what type of development we want to see, we can then attract the largest capital investment that the Mars company has ever made in our community. It's an agribusiness um, project, and it was $450 million that was invested into our rural community. So those are the stories that we want to share, not only with our site selector friends, our business community, but also our local stakeholders.
Yeah, and I think both of you are really intent on authenticity and alignment. So alignment internally as far as what you can support, your assets, your stakeholders, what they want, and then making sure you communicate that clearly, each in your own way, which, like I said, it's great having you both here today because your communities are very different. What you're focused on is very different, but you're both having a lot of success. Sharing success stories as proof points. So we don't need to pause on this one, but just, examples from both of you with the fact that you do have to share your success. You have to tell your story and you have to talk about the good things. I recommend that every economic developer go outside of their comfort zone to share the good. I know it's really hard as an economic developer who is used to working behind the scenes, giving other people credit to maybe not share all the success because it feels awkward or uncomfortable. But that's what you need to do to get more of it because then people see you're a good partner and are wanting to work with you too. I don't know if you either one of you have any comments on this one.
Well, I think it's important that, with your stakeholders, as Justin's talked about, I mean, the people in your own community, they want to know what's going on. And the stakeholders like your elected officials, they want to know what's happening. And I think folks around the world want to know because you're dealing with people from sectors from that you'll never probably ever meet. And
Hmm.
you got to share those stories, and not just groundbreakings and things like that, but all the things that you're doing that's making a difference. And that builds, success builds success. And in this case, when people see success, they say, "Huh, maybe we should consider doing something like that. Maybe not that, but like that." And you just don't know what doors will open for you. So those stories, I think, are really important. And I can't overemphasize about your local community because I have found that people always want to know what's going on that corner. What's that building for? And I've found that people, when they hear what's happening, when they're part of the conversation, they get extremely supportive. And that creates optimism. It creates a great confidence in your community, not just for us as developers, but as a community. And I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, ultimately, like you said, success breeds success. So we need to talk about the good stuff, and the steps along the way too, because economic development is not a snap your fingers. You talked about the grocery store earlier, Justin. I'm assuming you didn't wake up one day and it appeared, right? There were literal plans and steps that went into that process that could have been talked about. And you probably did. I'm sure you did.
That was a 7 year overnight success.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And a big shout out to our copywriting team at Golden Shovel who helps to tell those stories.
Mhm.
Now for Preble County, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about what you're doing on social.
Yeah, Bethany, I think to tie into to the point that you and Mike were just making, right, so rural economic development offices, we're a small shop, right? I've got me and one other full-time employee and some part-time help that run the show here, and there's a lot that falls under our umbrella. So we can't do it on our own. We have to leverage outside resources to help continue that consistent and relevant messaging. So when you have a big win like Mars Pet Care coming into your community, it's not, as Mike said, it's not just that groundbreaking that you want to publicize, but it's all of the other things that are happening after that fact. So you can continue the momentum that a project like that brings to the community. And it's beneficial not only to the community, but also to the business. It's a reminder of why they chose this location, why employees should choose to live and work here. And it helps broaden their base and attract workforce in, which is always a part of the conversation when we're talking about rural communities. How do we get people to live and work here? And the messaging that has been created by Golden Shovel for us is really, really powerful. So we were nominated as a finalist for excellence in marketing last year at the Ohio Economic Development Association. And we see the data that comes on the back end from this campaign. I think my favorite Facebook post ever was from a lady in the Northeast who commented on one of our posts and said, "I don't know where this place is, but Facebook wants me to move there." And so we know she may still not know where Preble County is, but we know we're hitting the right targets when we get that kind of comment on our social media posts. So, this is the stuff that you see on the screen is not something that I could create in-house. It's only with the expertise of our partners at Golden Shovel are we able to deliver this quality, consistent messaging.
And quite frankly, I like the idea of sipping my coffee at the lake. So this appeals to me too. All right. And we talked about video. I have a video, I won't show the whole thing, but I'm going to show a clip from both of your different videos.
My name's David Sizemore, and I own Spartan Machine Company. We're in New Paris, Ohio. We're in New Paris because the cost around the area was excessive when we were looking for a manufacturing facility. Plus the problems with finding labor were pretty difficult. We originally started in Richmond, Indiana, and we had a lot of trouble finding people that wanted to work for us there, or skilled labor, I should say. And the real estate was very expensive. So we came across New Paris almost as an accident, and found a building here that worked real well for us, and the community has really wrapped their arms around us. The city is very helpful with anything that we need, and there's lots of businesses here when we need machining or other things.
And I always say this example goes on, but the point is to have your local stakeholders, your local businesses to tell your story on your behalf. I always liken it to that 5-star Google review. If I'm traveling and I want to find a new restaurant to visit, I'm going to read what people say in the comments before I make my final decision about where I'm going to have dinner. Because when somebody can speak on your behalf, it carries a lot more weight and value. So we really encourage people to use video consistently in their storytelling, in their marketing. And when you can get someone to give you a testimonial on video to do it, I do want to
Bethany, can I
show.
just make
Go
one
ahead.
comment about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, go ahead.
So that, Dave is an incredibly smart guy, very successful businessman. He's not terribly polished, right? I mean, there's fumbles in with his messaging. The wording maybe not, it's not written by a copywriter, obviously. You heard tools clanking around in the background. So that's a piece that's not overly produced, but
Right.
it's authentic. It's real. We can relate to that. And that's the type of community that we are, and that's the messaging that we want to promote.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. A lot of people fail to act because they don't think they can make something perfect. So obviously at Golden Shovel, we would love all your business. Hire us to produce, of course, professionally developed everything. But you know what? If you can't, do it anyway. Find a way to do it anyway, because you have to tell your story. This is an example of a site promotion video. It's not from either one of your communities, but I wanted to give this as an example of how you can use video to dispel some of those common misperceptions as far as what your sites have to offer. And so again, just as an example, and of course this one we did professionally produce, but you're seeing 3D buildings pop up to show what's possible. This can be really important, especially in rural areas that aren't super developed, where you can call out, the rail. This is actually 3D animation. Our team spent just some inside info. Our team spent an entire day just waiting for the train to go by, and eventually the light wasn't right, and so we're like, you know what, we're just going to build it ourselves in 3D. But the point is that you can drop a lot of things in to show rail, to show your highway access, to show what it would look like when a building is developed. And sometimes that's really important because you need to be able to create what's possible. Hey, Nathan, would you look at the slide to see if I skip through Mike's video or if it's coming up? Because I do have a video I want to show on your stuff later, Mike. and I can go backwards if Nathan tells me I missed it.
Yeah, I will look for that.
And
Perfect.
Bethany, that video that you just showed from Pittsburgh, I've used locally with a developer who was sitting on land, and they had some renderings of buildings, but they weren't really promoting it. And so I showed them that video, and they're like, "Oh, this is what the competition is doing. This is what we need to do." So it got
Yeah.
them kind of off center to invest more in their property so that we can market it.
No, that's great. And that's such a powerful tool. Video performs better for everyone who's here on ads and on social than anything else. So whether it's super professionally produced or whether it's you popped out your iPhone and you're taking some clips, you definitely want to have video to promote all of your sites. All right. Nathan, did you find out? Did I skip Mike or is Mike coming up?
You have not skipped him.
You're coming up then, Mike. Okay. So let's talk about talent attraction leading to housing development. That is, of course, a really big issue throughout the country. We need to build more rooftops. This is all you, Justin.
So particularly hard for us because we hadn't really done housing development in 20 years in Preble County. We averaged less than 50 new housing starts a year countywide. So we had one local builder. It wasn't terribly easy to work with. So we had to go outside of the county to attract home builders to come invest here. And that was a difficult thing to do when you don't have a proven market, right? Population was declining. Now we built the business case around the positive economic activity. We were creating jobs. We were creating high paying jobs. So we know that people were coming here for work, but weren't providing an option for them to live. So uh, we had to build that business case with the hard data first to get the conversation with the housing developers. But their question to us was, okay, so we decide to come there. Now what? How do we actually hook into those people who may be working here but not living here? And how do we get more of those people to take a look at Preble County? And so being able to say to those housing developers, we're actively doing a talent attraction campaign. Here's the marketing material around that. Here are the areas where we're spending dollars to advertise that messaging. Here's the data that Golden Shovel provides us on the back end that shows what the interactions are, where we're hitting, what posts are hitting. That gave those housing developers the confidence then that we were going to uphold our end of the bargain to continue to attract people into our community. And what that has resulted in is last year we had the highest number of housing starts in the county in over 20 years. And we've got three, four, five projects that are either under construction or have been announced. I've got one more that is wrapping up a project, and we'll have another announcement here coming soon is the plan. So it's happened a lot faster than what I expected it to, and it's only because we were able to demonstrate that we're continuing to attract people in through our talent attraction campaign.
That's awesome. I just heard about another win for you. So that's really exciting. All right. And you just touched on all of these things. So I'm going to keep going here.
Yeah, so this one I think is really important, Bethany. So D.R. Horton, as many of you probably know, is the largest home builder in the United States. And we had lots of conversations with lots of people who said, we like your story, but it's an unproven market. So when we were able to attract D.R. Horton, it's a small development. It's only 30 units. When they put their name to it, all of a sudden my LinkedIn starts lighting up with other housing developers that want to know what's going on here. So being able to land them even on a small project gave us a lot of traction with other home builders.
And that's a really good point, right? Building up that reputation. Yeah, because obviously if one company sees somebody that they recognize and trust moving in, whether it's on the housing side or on, a traditional manufacturing or business side, they understand they can get the support they need in your community. So that's a
Exactly.
really good point to make. Mike, I want to shift to away from talking about housing to talking about workforce because you've been doing some really innovative things with your partners to try to develop your homegrown talent.
And thank you. I think that a lot of us are involved with our local public schools and trying to do some career fairs and what have you. And we've done the same thing, obviously, as well as for adults trying to get them into employment. But one of the areas that I think was really important for us was to really cycle back to, the very youngest student and start working towards what makes them want to do something in their lives and what is that all the way through high school. But when you get to high school, especially, you get students that typically don't know where they're headed after graduation, right? I mean, we hear that a lot. In fact, I think some of us were sitting in this webinar probably the same way. We didn't have a plan to be an economic developer at all, right, Justin?
Mhm.
So here we are. But I think what we've done, and we just did this last fall, the latest one, and we've had a lot of these. But I think the challenge that I see is people, regardless of age, really may not understand. I don't, but may not understand what a career in whatever field is until they actually sit down and visit with someone. This past fall, we had a different approach. We brought in about 30 different companies and from CEOs of the company, business owners, and we did a fully active program with Be Pro, Be Proud. And we brought in employers that actually did interviews, mock interviews and real interviews on the spot with high school seniors and some juniors, predominantly seniors because they're going to graduate. What we found was these students came with the resumes in their hands, and we're talking every high school in our county was represented. And these kids, I shouldn't say that, I guess students, but they're kids to me. But over 130 students came, and some were dressed in coat and tie and nice dresses and ready to actually go through the interview. And it was amazing the experience that they had. I had one student that I heard yelling at his friends in the parking lot. He goes, I was interested in doing that, but I'm going to here because this actually pays better. So he goes, I'm going to go check that out and see what that
Nice.
is all about. So we brought these employers together, and it was really, as a picture show, it was very interactive. It wasn't just tables and chairs and like a career typical career fair with stuff on the table for the kids to take trinkets, but it was actually on hands activities where the students could actually engage with and understand some of the tools, some of the things that they would be involved with in that career. And I
Mhm.
found that some of those employers actually hired students from that event, which I thought was just fabulous. Now, what we also did was we actually did a pre-workshop before the event happened, and we actually brought those employers in to our offices and coached them with our state workforce folks on all the programs that's available to them where they can save money with, and get funding and apprenticeship programs, all these things that employers don't often know about.
Mhm.
And when they were at this event, they actually were able to use some of those tools. And now we have students now that are apprenticeship programs with companies that didn't have them before, for an example. I found that the students were fully engaged. I've never seen like it. I mean, I've been to a lot of these. I've never seen anything quite like what we were able to accomplish. I'm pretty proud of our team that did that. But I think the employers are the ones that really learned more than the
Mhm.
students did because they started seeing the students differently than just high school students. They started seeing the students as prospective employees because they were truly engaged.
Well, I love that example. And, it ties into what Justin was saying with the housing developers is that you have to show you have a plan, right, on the housing development side. It's the same thing on the business side. You have to show you have a plan to get workers engaged into these companies. And that's exactly what you did by having students from every high school in the area show up, by bringing in your state partners to show businesses there's funding opportunities. You demonstrated that you have a plan. And I don't think we have a slide on this, so I'm going to just throw it out here to you right now, Mike. I know you even have a story where you had a business recruitment where you were able to help them hire people within like a week or two. So your plan is working. Your matchmaking plan is working.
It is. And in fact, yes, we had a company from Arkansas that called me and said they were not leaving Arkansas, but looking for an expansion into our region because they saw a Western opportunity, not just New Mexico, but a Western opportunity for that expansion. And in less than 10 days, we actually cited the company and they hired some people and they've been at work ever since. So yeah, I think employers like and what we did is we helped them find employees,
Right.
obviously, right? And they found that to be quite refreshing. I know that a lot of us do that as developers. We try to link those potential employees with employers, but when you start to really drill down and find out what those needs are, especially on the recruitment phase, and then they expand and relocate and expand into your community as a result, that's a pretty big win in my regards, whether it's one job or 100 jobs. I mean,
Sure.
but I like those, in our world, we say singles and doubles like baseball, right? We take those every day. We'll take those smaller numbers because we can support those in a rural community. Those home runs and grand slams were, 300, 500 jobs, 1,000 jobs or not something you normally can accomplish. But if you can support a small company like that with a talent of young people, I think you just all win. And on the bottom of the slide is beproud.org. Check it out. And they could come to your community. They have a big van that's interactive. Like you see that picture. They have equipment in there that's interactive for the students to like simulators is what they are, and they can drive tractors and all kinds of stuff. So the students really learned a lot from the experience. And I think if you can work with companies in the same regard, I think everyone wins.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I know in Preble County, Justin, you try also to try to have interactive engagement. And we do have to keep cruising, but maybe you can just highlight the fact that you're starting in kindergarten.
Yeah, so
It's young.
Mike, people of a certain age remember Sesame Street. And anytime I can work Sesame Street into a presentation, I'm going to do that. But we remember who are the people in your neighborhood, right? And it started with, the postman, the teacher, the baker, things that kids are already familiar with. So that's where we start. It's age appropriate career exploration that starts in kindergarten and it just continues to build as they move through. Actually, this morning we were at the county fairgrounds. The slide there that shows start your career here was our fourth and fifth grade career exploration day. So over the last 2 days, we've had 800 students run through the county fairgrounds to do hands-on activities in each one of the 16 different industry sectors. So yeah, it starts with kindergarten and exposing them to things that they're probably already familiar with, but maybe aren't thinking about in terms of a career.
Yeah, or even thinking about careers yet, right? Takes a while to get there. I know that you are also using Use Science, which people should look up if they're not familiar. I'm going to keep going though, because I'm afraid we're going to run out of time. Transportation connectivity. Mike, you're going to talk about airports, and Justin, you're going to talk about road connections. So
Uh,
Roswell and airports.
yeah, so that's our terminal and we are in the process now of expanding that terminal. Actually, we have daily flights not to Houston but to Dallas
Oh,
and Denver. So we fly twice now, starting 3 times a day, back and forth to Dallas direct into our airport, and on American Airlines and to Denver with United. That's obviously opened up a lot of doors for us. Not every town can do that. There's issues with FAA and TSA and towers and so on. But I think where we're very fortunate is our community really came together to bring the air service, and we were never part of the EAS, the Essential Air Service System, because we, as a region, came together to bring in air service to Roswell to serve the region, not just our community, but the region. And I think it's a little bit different because then you can pull funds together, but more importantly, you can pull together the people, the communities together, and they use it. I mean, the flights are full every day, and
Oh, that's great.
and security, Bethany is like 20 minutes. So I mean, it could be right there with security. You beat security and wait in the sterile area, and I mean, you don't have to get to the airport 2 hours ahead of time. You can get there 30 minutes before boarding, and you'll be waiting for 15 minutes to get on the airplane. So I think in smaller towns, you have those type of opportunities. But more importantly, if you can create that by working with your airport, because airports are big economic engine. They are for us. And as long as we can encourage people to travel, which they do, and they're going to, and provide that service, I think everyone's going to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot more there. I wish we had more time to talk about how you came together as a region, but that was really critical to making this happen for you, I know.
Well, and there's grants out there to help you achieve that. And most states have them, and they're FAA grants. See, all states should have because they're FAA grants. The EAS, the Essential Air Service. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there people may not have tapped into, but don't give up because it changes the community. It changes because your business sector, your community, they travel. People want to travel for tourism. Families want to travel to visit family. I mean, I think if you can harness that, even if it's a small airlines, because they have boutique type airplane. I should see boutique's the name of a company, but if you smaller companies, like not the legacy carriers like United and so on, you have a great opportunity to bring in air service.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah, and we actually have a white paper on this. It's free to download for anyone who wants to figure out how to tap into more of those funds. All right. Preble County. So again, talking about connectivity, people don't understand how much connectivity you have.
Yeah, I think that's always a conversation in rural communities, right? What's available, and our local stakeholders tend to think of it of inside the county, right? If we put a Facebook post up of Indianapolis or Cincinnati, they're like, "Well, that's not Preble County." I'm like, "Yeah, but you go there, you go there, right?" So all these things are not far away, and we were very intentional when we built out the website with Golden Shovel that we focused on things that were available within a reasonable drive time, an hour and a half for us, that aren't necessarily within Preble County, but we still all utilize and benefit from. So, we are 90 minutes from three major metros, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis. So, when you're looking for that sporting event or that concert to go to, you've got options. It's not like you're only going to your local uh, concert or theater or art performance, right? You've got multiple to choose from. So that we use that to our advantage. Some people may not see it that way, but for us, it's a selling point. And I think when you choose to live in a rural community, you accept that there's going to be a drive. But realistically, a 30-minute drive to downtown Dayton that's not far, right? That's the typical commute time. So
Right.
we really try to highlight those assets that are outside of the county, but do benefit our quality of life.
Yeah, it's that regionalism tie. And, if you've never lived in a major metro, driving an hour and a half may seem like a big deal, but you could be not going very far and driving an hour and a half if you're in a major city just due to traffic. So it is a matter of perspective, thinking about it from who are you recruiting and bringing in and what's their lived experience right now. Because if they're coming from a major city, these drive times might not seem like a big deal at all. We already talked about the grocery store, so I'm going to skip this slide here. Talking about amenities, obviously, Justin, you mentioned how you're bringing in what's available within the community, as you can see, like with the lake, but then also regionally, like we talk about arts and culture and college sports. With Roswell, here's your video, Mike. I'm going to play this real quick so you can see how Roswell has highlighted what they have to offer.
We all know Roswell is known for its aliens and conspiracy theories, but I assure you, we're way cooler than that.
I don't wanna wake up and let my dreams die this moment. I'm
You ever swim in a bottomless lake? Yeah, I didn't think so.
And I love how this video is really fun, but it brings in so much about your community and just showcases it in a dynamic way that sometimes words can't express, right? So it's a great idea to bring those videos in. Now, I do want to give you a minute here, Mike, and you a minute, Justin, to talk about some of your projects because I know we are running out of time. Mike, maybe you can talk about how you use a lot of creative energy to bring in the air show and how you address some of these missing pieces in creative ways, like with the RV stays.
And yes, and thank you. So the National Championship Air Race has been around for 60 years, 60. They were formerly in Reno, Nevada, and we recruited them, and we were the selectee out of 38 other communities across the country. Pretty big deal. They had a lot of needs that they didn't realize, and so it really makes you dig deep into your own community to see how you can best support them. Like RV parks. And not only did we develop a temporary RV park, but now we have a permanent RV park, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The air races and major events like that. The air race last year, our first race, 56,000 people. Economic impact was nearly $30 million. We had people from 48 states, except for New Hampshire and Vermont. So if you're one of those two states, I shame you into to attending this November. And we had 16 countries that were represented. It was on ESPN, Fox News, Fox Sport. I mean, it's a big deal. It's not only just an air race. It's like NASCAR in the sky, 500 miles an hour plus, 50 feet off the ground, flying head to head, not against a clock. But that's a pretty big event. And it's a year after year event. It's not a one-time deal. This is their permanent home. We just landed another project just yesterday, and it's another big event like this, but it's not air racing. It's tied to music, and it's tied to high-tech expo activities. So everyone's heard of Coachella. This is not a Coachella, but it's going to be very much similar because the folks that are developing this we're part of that group. So we have Grammy Award winning people already involved and what have you. So we expect our next one to happen in spring of next year. First one happened the spring of next year. It'll be a year after year event. My point is this: you have to look inside yourself and see what can fit. What is the possibility? Sometimes you think, oh man, there's no way we can do that. There's no way we can do that. I mean, like creating an RV park. This doesn't sound hard, but it is, because you have to put in infrastructure, you have to funding first, and then you have to engineer it, and then you have to get it done. And then you have to meet the needs of the community that's going to need it. So there's a lot of marketing stuff. There's a lot of things that goes on. We had so many side visits for the air races. I can't even tell you. I had so many people here. But we were very fortunate, and we're pretty excited. And they're going to be here. This is a forever home. So we see this year being larger than the first year, and they anticipate about 80,000 people. Whatever the economic impact will be, we don't know. We'll see that when that occurs. And we'll have a lot more aircraft here. We have over 100 airplanes here racing, not at the same time, but different classes. And then we'll have a lot of folks here. We have brand new grandstands, seat nearly 10,000 people, and that are permanent. And so I was always looking for a way to utilize those for something else. Well, here it is. But now we've got this another big event that's going to happen right out there. So I think major events can happen, and they're really great for our community in this regard because they give a lot back to our civic groups who volunteer to do car parking and different things. And so from an economic perspective, it really helps out. I never thought I'd be in the tourism deal, but I am. And I've got a third tourism event happening in November. So I guess my point is this: as long as you work towards making the accommodations people need for the different pieces, and maybe it doesn't work back in your town. And we talked about this before, and that's that word regionalism. Look into your region. Holy smokes, I knew we didn't have the hotel space for 56,000 people. I've got 1,700 rooms in Roswell. Well, as a region and RV spaces, we can support it. So that's the key: is go further than your own boundaries, be creative, be imaginative, and get out and talk to your region. Don't just say, oh, well, they've got so many rooms over in this community. No, get out there and visit every single one of them and come together as a group to make it happen.
Yeah, and that's a really good takeaway to come together as a group and then also just be optimistic in regards to what is possible. To really think outside that box. Um, Justin, I'm just going to this Preble slide so I can give you opportunity to talk about your projects here. But, you have exhibited that same level of optimism that I know Mike has that made him go after the Reno air shows. Come on, guys, remember this was the Reno, right? So it wasn't like an obvious that it would come to Roswell. And you've had that same level of optimism with trying to recruit national home builders, and you talked about the Mars project. So what do you want to share about your approach?
Yeah, I think it again, it comes back to development is about people, not projects. So it's getting the community alignment around what types of development you want to see in your community and what that will do for them. So that's really the message that I want to drive home is we're in the process right now of a community visioning project, so we can have that conversation around, okay, if we're going to attract industrial development, well, what are the costs to that? What's the infrastructure necessary to support that? So when we start to make those investments, we can fall back on, as a community, this is what we decided we wanted to go after. So I think that community alignment is just so important, especially in rural communities.
Yeah, thank you. We have a minute left, but you guys have some questions in the chat. Mike and Justin, are you free to stay on a few more minutes?
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, Jason, Nathan, you want to pull up those questions and let's see what you guys have to say.
Yep, we got it. The first one is, how do you tackle people in your community who are negative and only want to complain about things that are wrong with the community? It's great to focus on knowing your community and who it really is, but there are always those people in the community who just don't find anything good in growth or change. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, I physically tackle them and pin them down and make them understand my points. That's the way I handle it.
I think something very similar to that. I think it's important that, let me make sure I phrase this properly. I think there are times when people really don't have all the facts. And sometimes they just need, to be aware of the facts. Now, not everyone's going to agree with you, and I'm good with that. But I think we have to be in a position where it's also optics. We have to be engaged in our communities and share the stories as we talked about earlier, and then tell them the facts. Now, if they want to move on without, and that's great, move on. But I think we'll all face that, and if we haven't already, then I don't know where you live, but it might be a better place than some of the other places. But I think there's always going to be folks that are against everything, right? The cave people, and it's just a matter of getting the facts to them, and then and usually it's not a single person, but it's usually in a group setting, is what I do, and that makes some other people that understand it chime in, be part of providing that response, not just me. They're going to say, "Well, you're going to say that because you're the economic developer." No, well, listen to these guys, these ladies. So that's what I do. That's how I handle it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't often physically tackle people, but I do. I use facts, right? And not that that's going to cloud their argument necessarily, but at least I know I'm confident in presenting what is true, not just what is hearsay. And I always invite people in. I'm more than willing to have a conversation, sit down and talk face to face with anybody that wants to voice their opinion. That's what we should be doing as servants in some way of the public. So most people don't take me up on that. They would rather be keyboard warriors, and that's okay. I know that I've done everything that I can to present a true and factual statement of what is happening and why it's happening. And that goes with our challenges as well, not just our successes. But I always encourage that face-to-face interaction because typically people, once they see you as a person, they know that you choose to live here, choose to work here just like they do. Then you've got at least some common ground to start from.
Yeah, that's a good point. At Golden Shovel, we have an Eco Devo 101 product that's been pretty successful in helping to dispel narratives by breaking down economic development concepts into things that are tangible and bite-sized. Because it's nebulous. You talk about infrastructure, what is that? You talk about economic development, what is that? But if you talk about so and so who went from living in a one-bedroom apartment to they were able to buy a house for their family and they got to go on vacation this year because they got a better job. That's a lot more concrete. So, how do you make the stories relatable and personal to what's actually happening in your community?
It's just like the person that stand up says, I don't like data centers because they're just bad, 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 while they hold their cell phone in their hand, and then it's just about matter of, I think, for understanding. To me, it's understanding,
Mhm.
and then help them understand. But you may not change their feelings, and that's fine. But I think it's a matter of just trying to be factual enough and personal. And I mean personal with them. I think that's real important. No, but you're right. There's keyboard warriors out there. I have not heard that phrase, but that's a good one. And I'd like to talk to people one on one, and I mean face to face, and because I think you get a better result. You know, so
Yeah, good points, guys.
This next one is a technical question. We may or may not have the answer at hand, but there was a question about what tools we're using to create the 3D renderings in the one of the videos you showed.
Yeah, if you want to have a more detailed conversation on that, you feel free to reach out to me, bquinn@goldenshovelagency.com.
Great. Next one, building on Justin's comments about a difficult housing developer, what strategies do you recommend in dealing with problematic local residents who may be anti-development of any kind? I guess we covered that one in the first question.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think, so again, I'll go back to my comment. People want their communities to be the same but better, right? So is it the new grocery store that they want? Is it that sit-down restaurant that every community needs, or the retail store, right? So there are things that those folks want uh, in their community that are not currently present. So I get them to talk about those things. What would they like to see? And then what are the things that we need to do to make those things happen, right?
Yeah, next question. Do Mike and Justin operate off of multi-year strategic plans, or are your efforts more tactical and organic responses to the needs of stakeholders?
I
Yeah, so we do a 3-year strategic plan. Any more to go longer than that, I don't think makes sense. And then what I do for my board and for the community is based off of that strategic plan, I do an annual work plan. So we have our areas of focus, and then there's in each of those areas of focus, there are specific activities that we're going to engage in for that year that drive towards that 3-year goal, and we put metrics around each one of those. So that's something that I create based off of what the strategic plan document is, and then I require that my board signs off on it. So when those cave people do show up, then we've got a document that says, nope, this is what we agreed to do. And it also helps our organization put guardrails up, right? Because there are some people who think, oh, why aren't you doing this? You should be doing this. And we can't be everything to everybody, right? So we can say, okay, yeah, those things are important, but this is what we're focused on. So yeah, we do a 3-year strategic plan with a 1-year work plan tied to that.
ditto. I do exactly the same thing, but I don't call it a work plan. I call it a tactical plan. So I have a strategic and that. I'm a military guy, and then we have a 1-year tactical plan. It's the same thing. Measure
Yeah.
and measure it, or it's not real.
Mhm. Yep.
Great. And then our last question, any strategies on how you've capitalized on those great tourism events that you've got to spur business development?
For me, I have found that we are only, as people, we are only limited by our own creativity and imagination. Really, that's it. Yeah, yeah, sure, there's funding and those other things, but really, the best ideas come from people's minds, and you never know where they're going to turn, and you never know what you can actually achieve until you sit down in a room and you start talking to others, and kind of thinking about, can we, if we, shall we, let's do it. And I think that's really important is there's everyone's got some great ideas. Harness them, talk about them. Some will work, some won't. You don't know if you don't try.
So Nathan, one of the things that we've done, so we host the American Quarter Horse Congress. We have shows at our fairgrounds and attract people from all the way from Canada down to Florida. So not quite 48 states, Mike, but the eastern half of the U.S. anyway is coming into Preble County. And the way that we've leveraged that is working with our small businesses. So we create a welcome package for those attendees of the horse show that get them into our local communities, to the boutique shops, to the restaurants, to the hotels. So we're really working with our small business partners to make them feel a part of the event, even though it's mostly attracting outsiders into the community.
I like that welcome package idea.
Mhm.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I did want to point out there's a QR code on the screen that has a white paper that gives a lot more best practices. Mike and Justin, their communities are both referenced in this white paper, but there's so many more communities that are as well. Again, we're trying to bring you best practices from all over the country that you can put into action in your own community. Mike, Justin, thank you so much for lending your time and your expertise today. You shared so much great insight, and I really hope that all the listeners live and watching the recording benefit from what you shared. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bethany. Appreciate it. Thanks, Nathan.